Hello everyone, welcome to another Flesh and Blood video. In this one, we're going to be talking about the new Lightning Runeblade from Rosetta, Aurora Shooting Star. Probably the best deck out of Rosetta. I think, is she the most popular? I think Florian might be a little more popular, but I would argue strongest hero out of Rosetta. Definitely the new aggro deck of the format. Let's just get started. Aurora is a 4 intellect, 40 health, elemental runeblade hero. She has Essence of Lightning, meaning she can put lightning cards in her deck. She has another ability of a once per turn instant to create an embodiment of lightning token for 2 resources, but you can only use it if you've played a lightning card this turn, which is pretty easy to do. Acilio obviously requires you to play a large number of lightning cards, so most of the list is lightning, but since this is only one, we can play a wider spread of cards that some of them just happen to be lightning, and on turns we need the embodiment, we can just make it. It's also really good because we can keep it for a later turn. If we, say, have a blue that we're pitching to Starfall and we didn't grasp, we can make the embodiment to have it for next turn, so we can sort of unbrick a hand. She doesn't really have the Runeblade problem of sometimes she just gets terrible hands. Of course, she still does sometimes, every deck does, but thanks to the embodiment, you can sort of fix that a lot of the time, and overall, Aurora is just a pretty dang good hero that I think a lot of people are playing just because she has that factor of just being consistent, being very strong, is probably the best aggro deck right now. So, Aurora, really, really good. Looking at her weapon, Starfall is a Lightning Runeblade weapon. It's a two-handed sword. It has 1 base power, and it has a once per turn action for 1 resource to attack. But if you've played a lightning card this turn, it gets +1 and go again. This is just very strong. This is a more redline list, which means the only times you're going to be attacking with Starfall are when you get that blue to pitch, or if your Tunic is up, which is one of the reasons why we are on Tunic. Starfall is just being a free 2 damage every few turns is just a really nice piece to the deck, and really no other Runeblade weapon is that good for Aurora because they all either cost 2 or don't have go again, usually both. So Starfall is just like a perfect made weapon for her. Looking at the rest of the main board equipment, Face Purgatory is going to be our helmet of choice just because it's a little disruptive and it can help fix some hands sometimes. If you didn't want to play Face Purgatory, you can always just play Crown of Providence instead. I think that swap's perfectly reasonable. But I think Face Purgatory for now is just a better card because so many decks are either A, trying to set something up, or B, trying to race you. So having that disruptive element is just really nice. I've seen lists on chests other than Tunic. I think that's fine. We are even on one for higher arcane matchups in the sideboard, but for main board, I think Tunic is definitely just the way to go, giving you access to a free Starfall every few turns, as well as a resource for Lightning Greaves, is just perfect. This is generally just one of the best chess pieces in the game, and something that I would recommend most players pick up if they are newer. It's been reprinted a fair amount of times, so it's not really too expensive. It's just a nice tool to have. There are so many classes that want it. Of course, some don't. Like if you were I don't know, what's a class that doesn't use Tunic? Warrior, Ninja, Guardian, Brute, they all use Tunic sometimes. I guess if you're a KO player, right? But even KO sometimes plays Tunic. Like if you were playing Azalea. Like Azalea has Tunic as a staple chess piece. So I think most Rangers... Is that really it? Tunic is just a good card. So, very good in Aurora. Grasp the Arknight is here because we don't have a blocking mainboard chess piece, and sometimes that rune chant can just help you end out a game by just pitch 2, make a rune chant. They might not have AB, get them. It's really good. 3 extra health in the arm slot is really, really nice. The only other comparable piece would be the AB1, break it, make 2 rune chants, but I think Grasp the Arknight gives you a little bit more value over the course of the game, especially because our AB1 is covered by our Lightning Greaves. This is a Very good card from Rosetta. Battle 1/1, Arcane Barrier 1. 1 resource, instant, destroy it. Your instant cards you play this turn get go again. Let you combo off with Gone in a Flash. Sometimes let you just play a bunch of non-go again things in a turn, which could happen, but mainly for Gone in a Flash. Pretty much free if we have Tunic up. That's sort of that grand synergy that the deck has. So Lightning Greaves, just a really good tool for the deck, even giving you that 1 extra HP. If you were on Snapdragon Scalers, I think that's perfectly reasonable as well, but if you were, I don't think I would be on Gone in a Flash. Looking at the main board, let's start off with the attacks. Arcanic Shockwave is just a 0 for 4, but it has that Lightning Fusion to do 1 arcane damage to any target hero. This lets you get some just free damage through. If your opponent wants to full block it, they're going to need to spend 3 cards or a D-React plus another card. So late game situations, this card can be extremely powerful. And it's still just a 0 for 4, which is perfectly what Aurora wants. Enlightened Strike is extremely powerful because we can give it go again with our embodiments of lightning, allowing us to pick either of the 2 modes. Generally, decks that have the ability to get go again on Lightning Strike will just play it because the other 2 modes are that powerful if it already has go again. Think new giving a Levels of Enlightenment +1 and go again with a Mistblade. A 1 for 6 that drew a card is incredibly powerful. Even a 1 for 4 that drew a card or a 1 for 6 go again, very strong if you only had 1 blue in your pitch, but you strike very good. Some lists won't play it that are more, aggressive because this cost of putting a card from your hand on the bottom can sometimes hurt, but when you're a deck that, like Runeblades have, where they're, sometimes they're a little bricky, having something like this E-Strike is just a powerful tool to make sure your hands don't rot with bad cards. Entwined Lightning is a 0 for 4 go again. It doesn't matter it's not lightning, we're not a Cilio, not every card needs to be. It's just free go again. That's why it's here. That's really it. Same as Flittering Charge. Play an instant on this chain link, it gets go again. It's a 0 for 4. That's really it. Let's keep going in a flash. Lightning Surge, 0 for 4. Go again. Played from Arsenal. That's why it's in the deck. These 3 are in here just because they're 0 for 4s. It's the whole reason. And they go again. Back to going in a flash. This card is incredibly powerful in a deck like this that can actually use it. Since we're on Lightning Greaves, if we have Tunic up with Greaves, a Gone in a Flash in Arsenal in a few instances, we can do an immensely powerful turn. A little weaker than Acilio because he gets to end in a burn spell, but still strong nonetheless, especially since you're the aggro deck. Pushing your opponent's life total lower is what you want to be doing. Turning all of your instants into 4 damage is just so strong. And sometimes you even make them stronger with like Electrostatic Discharge or getting, go again next turn with the Sigil of Lightning. So going in a flash, just an incredibly powerful card. One of the best. Ravenous Rabble is here because this deck is on a slightly higher amount of reds than your average list. We're only on 6 yellows and 9 blues main board, so this card just gets a lot of value. If you were going to bring in Flicker Wisps, though, I would consider going down this, but that's purely up to you. You could also go down an instant, but I think going down Rabble could be a way to go there because you are adding a little more pitch into your deck, which is a little worse for the Ravenous Rabble. Snatch is just a 0 for 4 on hit draw, but because we can give it go again with the embodiments, it's very scary. There's a reason this card does not have go again at base, and it's just strong when it gets it. Static Shock is a 0 for 4 from the Aurora First Strike deck. It has an on hit to do 1 arcane to that hero if you played a lightning card this turn, which is something you want to be doing. So it's generally a 0 for 4 on hit 1 arcane. Really good. And then the last attack in the main board is Current Funnel. This is a 0 for 2, 3 block blue, but it has a effect to where if the last action you played was lightning, this and the next action you play get go again. Just a strong card to make your turns, work Sometimes you go like Sizzle Current Funnel into a Snatch, and that's just a really good hand. Other times you just have a really big wide turn, and this can just be a card to fill as well. It's a blue for your Starfall and your hero ability, and it's a 3-block, so it's just a pretty good card. Next, let's talk about the instants for the deck. Just going backwards this time since we're already at blues. Sigil Lightning is a card not in most Aurora lists. However, since we are on Gone in a Flash, I think it's a little better here. I've seen a lot of lists opt for more blocking blues, but we are the aggro deck, so the chance to just have another card to make Gone in a Flash better is great, as well as if we find this early enough, get it down, we can just get a go against Snatch or E-Strike or whatever, pretty much for free. Blink is just an extra action point. I don't have to say much about it. Works Gone in a Flash, works with Flittering Charge, works with everything else, all of our non-go again things. It's a blue. It's great. Channel Lightning Valley is pretty easy to turn on considering that we have a very easy pitch into our weapon for most of our lightning cards. This card's incredibly powerful when we look at our sideboard because there's a card in there that is actually really strong with Channel. And since we're able to keep it around for 2 turns pretty consistently, getting 2 draws out of this card is just incredible. Arc Lightning is the deck's power card. This is Aurora's spec. It is a 2-block Lightning Runeblade action. It's a yellow and it costs 0. It says whenever you go again this turn, you do 1 Arcane to any target. And the next action you play this turn gets go again. And then it itself is go again. So you'll play this. You'll do the 1 Arcane off of its go again. You'll play like a Snatch. The Snatch will again go again. So you'll do 1 Arcane. And then you'll just take the rest of your turn. If you had a Channel in play, you get to draw a card. If you kept Channel in play for that turn, next turn you have an even bigger turn because you can set up a 5-card hand with a Channel in play and just get so much value. This card just lets you push so much damage. Incredibly strong against slower decks as well when we do end up bringing in the Flicker Wisp, because we can set up even bigger turns to have even more Arcane come in at our opponent. This is just giving every go again source a +1 damage effect, which is, again, just incredibly strong. Sigil of Solace is just a pretty good tool I've seen in a lot of these lightning decks. They all care about instants, and Sigil of Solace being just a gain 3 life is just a really nice card to have. I think this card's pretty dang good. If you didn't want to play it, I think that's perfectly reasonable, but I really do like Sigil of Solace in these lightning aggro decks because it lets you go a little longer and it's an instant for your instant synergies. Lightning Press is pretty much just a lightning Sigil of Solace. Instead of choosing Peace and gaining 3 life, you're choosing Violence and increasing damage by 3. Works on every attack in the deck except CNC, which is in our sideboard. So just a really good tool to just let you get more damage through. Notably, though, doesn't work with Gone in a Flash, which is why Sigil is sometimes a little better. Electrostatic Discharge is Sigil's younger, or not Sigil, Lightning Press's younger brother, but is generally actually just better. It's a 0 for 3, pretty much, but you have to play it before the card you play. Sometimes this is worse. If your hand is just 1 attack and it's like a Flittering Charge and you want to do another thing after, yes, the Lightning Press is better, but in most situations, Electrostatic Discharge generally works better or the exact same, so this card is incredibly powerful. Yes, it is worse with fusing as well, but I mean, if you're showing them Lightning Press, they know you have it. It's the same thing, kind of. Electrostatic Somersault is pretty much just an attack. It's a 0 for 4 that lets you sometimes have the blocking upside. Acilio doesn't have very many 3-block attacks, but in this deck has a lot more. You have 15 in Current Funnel, Static Shock, Gone in a Flash, Arcanic Shockwave, and E-Strike. So a lot of the time this is just a free Soul Shield, or again, you can just use it, pick up a 0 for 4, and make this card a 0 for 4. The last instant in the deck is a part of Burn Up Shock, so let's move on to the actions. Of course, we talked about Shock when we talked about Acilio. However, this card is free, which means you can just get a free arcane damage out of it. The main reason you're playing this card is for Burn Up, a Runeblade action that costs 0, The next time an attack you control hits a hero this turn, you do 4 arcane to them, and then it is go again. This is the reason why you want to be on so many breakpoints. Why this deck isn't on a card like Fry. Because Fry is not a breakpoint. They can just put a 3-block in front. You want to throw this with all of your breakpoints. This also even works with your weapon Starfall. It's any attack. So you can even use it on like a Tunic turn to get that little extra value. So Burn Up Shock is an incredibly powerful card that just is super annoying to fight because you know it's coming. It's like a Boom Grenade. They have a Boom Grenade in play. You're thinking, man, I don't want to take 4, but I have to take 4, and it annoys you a lot. So Burn Up Shocks are a very, very powerful card. Did I talk about Arc Lightning when I was talking about Instance? I talked about Arc Lightning when I was talking about Instance. This card's an action, not an instant. Sorry if that confused anyone. So the last action in the deck is Sizzle. Now, Sizzle and Static Shock are from the First Strike deck. LSS's pre-constructed product is either extremely hard to find or extremely easy to find. And something tells me that the First Strike decks are going to be extremely hard to find, considering Red Sizzle from the last time I looked is like $20-something. So, if you wanted to, you could play, what is the card called? Lightning something. Lightning, just do a quick search. You could play Weave Lightning instead of Sizzle if you don't have Sizzles. However, even though you might think, well, I can give the Arcanic Shockwave go again, that is not as good as giving Starfall +3 power, because this says your next attack. That only works with attack actions. That's the reason why Sizzle is better, because it can actually pump your weapon. But if you didn't own Sizzles, which I also don't know how much Static Shock is, but I assume it's not as much. I assume it's about the same as Sizzle, but this card's a little more important because of that. But Sizzle is very important. This can just be another 0 for 4 of whatever you want. This one is pretty needed. But like I said, if you didn't own them, say they're too expensive for you, you can play Weave Lightning instead. You just can't pump Starfall with Sizzle. That's the trade-off. You either don't pump Starfall, or you either don't pump Starfall and sometimes give this go again, or you pump Starfall. And pumping Starfall is generally better. Moving on to the sideboard. It's a pretty easy one. There's not too many. I need to still write the notes for this list, but they're not going to be as much as the other decks. It'll just be sideboard stuff, maybe a few swaps, but that's pretty close to just what you want. For equipment, Dyadic Carapace will come in when we need more than 1 Arcane Barrier. That's pretty simple. Shock Charmers, very similar. When we want Spell Void against Wizard, we bring it in. And then Spellfire Tiara will come in versus Kano, because Kano is really the only... Kano and KO are the only aggro decks that can truly outrace you consistently. Like, obviously, Acilio can, like, burst you, whatever, if he draws very well, but KO and Kano are the things that can scare you. KO, you can sometimes just beat them with just, like, KO is kind of, I think, close to 50-50, but Kano can just blow you up, so you can bring in Shock Charmers and Spellfire Tiara and AB3 to help not die to that. And there's really nothing else you would play. You can play Balance of Justice over Spellfire Tiara if you were more scared of things like the KO. Because it does have some use in the Kano, because they are drawing cards a fair bit at some point. So you can do that instead. I just think, Spell Void 3 plus AB3 is pretty good. And I mean, there aren't really any other things you need. This is better than Crown of Providence in a lot of situations. You play this or Crown of Providence, there's really no reason to have both. So having a Spellvoid head is not bad. The rest of the board is pretty simple. Flicker Wisp is for your slower matchups. Against slower matchups, you have more time to set up. So setting up this plus an Arc Lightning is incredibly powerful. That's kind of why it's here. Warmonger's Diplomacy is here because sometimes you need it. A lot of the time it doesn't really hurt you because you're mostly attacks and instants. It can hurt you on like a burn up shock turn, but still it's a 3-block blue if you really like. This can be other things. This can be Poison the Well, this can be Snag, that will be in the notes. This is sort of your tech card space. I just have Warmongers here because it's still useful. It doesn't really impact you as hard as you might think. Sigil of Suffering is the card that works incredibly well with Channel Lightning Valley. Since this card does arcane damage on an opponent's turn, and Channel lets you draw on an opponent's turn, you can just use this to replace it. Just is if they don't have AB, or they don't want to pay for the AB, or they just can't, this is just a 0 for 4 block draw. So that's really, or I guess a 0 for 5 draw, which is E-Strike, but with no cost, which is incredibly powerful. One of the stronger interactions you can put into your deck when you want to bring this one in. I don't know, man. Pick something. If you want to be more defensive, pick something to cut. I don't really know. There's just so many options you can make with this deck. I guess Rabble could be the cut because the rest of the deck works pretty well. You could also go down, like, I don't know, because all the other things are 3-block. I guess Rabble, because it blocks 2. If you want to be a little more defensive, this is more block than Rabble. So you can go this one instead. And then finally, we have CNC. Say it every time. Can be any other 2 for 6. Erase Face, Humble, Weakest Link. Probably Weakest Link. I think that's the second best option. Although that one's getting up there a little bit. This doesn't need to be CNC. It is your best option. It is only a sideboard slot, so it's not as bad. If you sub it for a Humble, an Erase Face, whatever other 2 for 6, it's a popper, and it's sometimes you bring it in if you want to be a little more disruptive. That's really about it. Other cards you could consider sideboarding, as I said, you could offer more interaction with your opponent, different types of interaction. These 3 I think would stay the same, apart from maybe, like, again, the CNCs can be something else, but like the Warmonger slots can be, you know, Snags, Poison the Wells. If you wanted, you can play the Aether Iron Weave, the 1-block Battle Worn Runeblade chest, where if you've played an attack and a non-attack, you can make 2 resource, and it has Go Again. That can be another Go Again source for your Arc Lightning turns, and it gives you 2 resource for CNCs or your Aurora ability if you really wanted to. I would play that if I wasn't on Lightning Greaves. But you could easily board in Lightning Greaves as well. Instead of this slot, you could say, okay, I want Greaves, I want Balance of Justice, and I want, you know, Aether Ironweave, and just call it a day there. I think that's perfectly fine too. If you wanted to stop healing, you can play Reaping Blade. This is just like 3 wildcard slots. It's fine. And then these equipment I think are really good. I think you want Dyadic in pretty much every Runeblade just because it is more block. If you did care for the more block, and then Shock Charmers work well, and Spellfreight Tiaras are, again, fine. This can be a different headpiece if you really wanted it to. But with all of that, that is going to be the end of the video. Next week, of course, we're going to be looking at the last deck from Rosetta in Verdance. I'm going to wait to, of course, we are getting Ira soon, so after Verdance will probably be Ira, and then we are getting Jarl, but Jarl looks cool, but we don't know all the cards. I think there's still 2 other M's there. I don't know if there's any, oh, we need the equipment. That's the big thing. We need the equipment to see what's going to be played there versus what we already have, so I'll probably wait to do a Jarl deck until after we see everything in there, because again, I want to wait until everything. But I think that deck looks really cool, and yeah, I guess there's really not much else to say. If you want to win an event, you should try. If you want to win an event and you play an aggro deck, you should try Aurora, because she's just the best aggro deck right now. So, just really good. So again, with that, see you all in the next video. Goodbye.